guys, let's talk about the time frame for the decision on Deshaun Powell. Everybody has a guess. We first heard July 11th was the day that the briefs had to be filed, which, of course, was a couple days ago. So everybody started thinking, okay, maybe a few days after that.
Right.
But a lot of people in the legal community know what that entails. They know how thorough a judge Sue Robinson was during her 25-year career as a district judge. She's going to take her time going over these briefs. So basically, the clock that's ticking now is, will it be before training camp? I think that's the next big deadline that everybody's looking for. Mike Florio has an educated guess. And Mike writes that in all likelihood, it's going to be the week of the 25th, which fits the training camp, the pre-training camp timeline. Do you buy that? Do you think that we're going to have a decision by the 25th?
It's just a guess. I'll say, yeah, I buy it. I don't buy this report from one of our local radio guys yesterday. Said, oh, I've heard it's going to be a 4 to 6 games. You haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Nobody's heard anything. Here's the thing, Jay. We talked about this a little while you were gone. But what it really hit me last week, that this is so different than any other time a player has been suspended by the NFL. Because every other time a player has been suspended, it was Roger Goodell essentially picking the suspension, right? Or somebody in the NFL front office.
Uncharted waters, really.
And the suspensions, to me, were based on as much, if not more, about emotion or PR than it was about fact. And in this case, it's so different. Now, obviously, we know that the league has the right to overrule Judge Robinson, but I think they're going to look very bad if they do that. But she is clearly treating, we would always say in the past, well, they don't have to prove it, it's not a court of law.
Right.
But I don't know if technically it's a court of law, but it feels like this is being treated by a court of law.
I think she's operating
very different.
Such.
She's operating exactly
when she gave
that
a
way.
Deadline for filings of briefs, I thought, whoa.
This is real.
This is the way it happens on TV.
Yes, exactly. This is different. And that's why, again, we don't know what it's going to be, but I feel like, and she said this the other day, and I agree completely. Whatever her ruling is, I think everybody's got to be good with it. Yeah. Whatever. I don't know what it's going to be.
You say that because you think it would be a bad look because then it goes to the hands of the commissioner.
Yeah.
If either side appeals, it goes to the commissioner.
Right.
So I loved your point to start, Bull. I think this is the smartest thing that anybody says about this whole deal. Before, it was about the optics.
Yes.
The PR.
Right.
But this time it does feel different.
It's not. And that's why the league's going to look so bad if they overrule. Because in the past, when the league ruled and then there was appeal, it was like, well, the league just kind of randomly came up with a number. It was emotional. In this case, outside of Deshaun Watson and these women and maybe their lawyers, this judge, this woman, knows more about this case than anybody.
Yeah.
She has thoroughly gotten into every aspect. So if she's taking this seriously and ruling whatever she rules, whether it's 0 games or 2 years, how does the league overstep that when this process has been so thorough on her part?
Almost to say, we know more about
it makes
the
no
judicial.
sense. Exactly.
To me, this is honestly, this should be what Roger Goodell wants. I mean,
Yes.
This would be the one time where he can be like, I had nothing to do with it. This was another party that did this. I don't have to worry about getting any backlash
Regardless
from
of
the
what it is.
NFLPA or women because it's not my ruling.
Tyvis, was that the whole idea, was to insulate the commissioner? Because I think people have forgotten. He nearly lost his job over the way he handled Ray Rice.
He did.
He literally, I had folks telling me he had a finger on the door handle, and that's how close it was. There were many owners that were so upset at the optics of how it was a 2-game suspension, and then immediately after the tape came out, and you guys remember, it was just an avalanche of criticism.
Yes.
I believe that this whole song and dance between the union and the NFL to mutually agree upon a person that would be the league's disciplinary officer, I think it insulates him perfectly.
Yeah.
And Bull, to your point, all he has to do is throw his hands up after Sue issues her ruling and say, she's the judge, guys. We have to live with that decision.
You really cannot argue that.
I'll tell you what, man. I used to work in corporate America for 10 years, right? And upper to middle management. And when you have a lot of people reporting to you, the problem I hated about the job wasn't the paperwork. It was progressive discipline. When you have progressive discipline, you have to have a paper trail. You have to have connections. You got to have, there has to be a step process. And one of the things that used to always frustrate me and a lot of other team leaders was there was no outline procedure in terms of If that person does this, they automatically get fired. That person does this, they automatically get this. And the reason they didn't have that was because you can't take into context the circumstances that that person has. Everyone has unique circumstances. And I remember us as team leaders being frustrated because we would get heat like, hey, this person isn't coming to work. Why is your person coming to work? Have you talked to him? And we would say, hey, well, look, we want to write them up. And HR came to us and said, guys, let me explain this to you a little bit. We make you go through this process, and we make you come to us for advice, not because we don't think you could do your job or you can assess whether that person should have discipline or not. It's to save you. Because now when that person comes back, if they want to go get workman's comp because we fired them, if they want to have a wrongful termination, guess what happens? You can say, well, here's my paper trail, and I went and checked this with HR. HR suggested this, and now there's a process involved where it's not your neck on the line with he said, she said, and that's why the procedure counts.
And that's kind of what we have in play here. The commissioner, there isn't a hard fact. And I think there are sentencing guidelines in real life.
Yes.
If you're convicted of manslaughter in the first degree or murder one, each state has sentencing guidelines. And then the judge has a wide swath of discretion that the judge can say, I'm going to go on the low end because I listened to the personal circumstances, or I'm going to go on the high end because this person is a repeat offender and showed no malice, or whatever the case may be. And I think Sue Robinson is the perfect person for this. And Bull, I hope you're right. I think the last thing this story needs is more oxygen. They need to put the lid on this, snuff it out, and move forward. And an appeal breathes more life into this story. And it extends to, we're at 16 months.
It's crazy already.
I think everybody is ready for finality, whatever that is. And I think barring anything over 8 games, I'm not sure the NFLPA is going to appeal. I'm not.
Because here's the great thing about it.
Yeah.
We can get some guidelines. Because if she comes back and she writes an opinion piece, and says,
she most likely will write a decision.
Right. Now you can take that to the rest of the Players Association, the owners, and everybody say, here's the deal.
And by the way, we did not see her decision on the Robert Kraft on the Washington football team investigation.
Which we should have.
We should have. Yeah. And the NFLPA can say in the wings, we'll all get to see it if we appeal this thing.
I think, again, I've been saying 8 all along, not because I know. I just feel like that's the number that both sides can live with.
Doesn't that seem like the middle ground?
Yes.
It does.
And that doesn't, and ultimately, Judge Robinson may not care about that. We could be way off. It might be 0, it might be 2 years. We have no idea. But that feels like the number to me that everybody can live with.
I thought the same thing until I heard Mike Florio, one of our good friend, Jonathan Peterlin, had Florio on the Fan.
Terrific interview, by the way.
Great interview. He asked him this question. He said, Mike, your tone was different a few weeks ago. It seems like this thing is changing a little bit. What was the difference in, what you've seen so far? And Florio says, well, frankly, that was before I heard the NFL's proof or lack thereof.
Right.
And that caught my attention, too.
Yes.
But that stood out to me as a blinking light in the interview. Another thing, too, I think that was the biggest nugget that I took. When he said, look, I was leaning that way until I heard what little they had.
Yes.
And he kind of outlined what little they had. He said that the NFL had interviewed 12 women, and that had been reduced to 5, which was later reduced to 4.
Right.
Here's what that means. As a prosecutor, you're going to put on the stand or put forth as evidence the most believable allegations, accusations, and alleged victims.
Yep.
They left 8 on the sidelines. So that means 2/3 of what they brought to, what they tried to get as evidence didn't pass their test. So, and that's the prosecutor's bar.
Yeah.
So I think when I heard that, I immediately thought, So we're not dealing with, everybody said 24, then 26. There's two out in the wings.
Some people are out there. I was doing an interview last week with Chris Broussard and Rob Parker. I was on their show, and they're like, well, what about the 66 cases? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's
66 cases.
Yeah, who said that, by the way?
I can't remember.
Because I worked with both those guys.
Yeah,
so
I
I'm going
don't
to give one
remember
of them
who was
grief.
asking. I can't remember. I think it was Rob Parker because he was going at it with me a little on Baker.
I can see Rob.
Yeah.
I can see Rob.
I'm like, what are you
and I
talking
love Rob.
about?
Rob is a brother to me.
Yeah, it was a good
Rob is
interview.
a
I
brother
enjoyed being
to me.
on with them, but I was like 66.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's
what
the-
are you
Okay, so
talking about?
Bull,
the big number.
just that little anecdote.
Right.
That's the telephone game.
Yes.
And that's how this is playing. Because remember, guys, there were rape crisis centers that were using this as fundraising, which infuriated me.
It's crazy.
It infuriated me because rape is a very serious, perhaps one of the most serious crimes someone can commit against someone other than murder.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I immediately threw my hands up and I said, wait a minute. Nobody's alleging this guy raped anybody. But there was fundraising efforts going on around the Deshaun Watson case and rape crisis.
A couple of years ago, not to go too far afield, but I remember Matt Damon got the mob after him during the height of Me Too.
Yeah.
He made a statement. He said, well, touching somebody's butt is not the same as rape. And people went crazy. And I'm thinking, okay, we all know it's not okay to just touch somebody's butt. However, there's a huge difference between touching somebody's butt and a rape.
And touching someone's rear end, although not socially acceptable.
Not acceptable.
It doesn't
but that's
raise,
a big difference.
It doesn't raise to the level of rape.
No, that's
and
a huge difference.
The telephone game point and Rob saying, well, there's 66 cases.
Yeah, right.
People hear numbers and they extrapolate what they want to remember and use later.
Yep.
And so, it was at one point 66 different masseuses. I was a bystander there watching this outrage over the New York Times article, and I just kept saying to anybody that would listen, why is this a big story? Why is 66 a big story?
I didn't get it.
We asked Ty.
We went over that.
We asked Ty this: how many massages would you get in a year's time?
And how many different masseuses?
It's around that number, so I don't see what the big deal is.
So the fact that it was 66, is it abnormal and maybe raise an eyebrow? Yeah. But is it noteworthy to the point of a New York Times? This was called a bombshell report. Remember?
Right.
Bombshell. Because he had 66 different masseuses. Okay, we still know that the number was 24 that alleged any kind of grievance.
Yes.
That raised to 26, even though those 25th and 26th cases still have not been filed.
Right.
Since the 24 number, that's been boiled down to 4. Correct. 20 settled.
Yeah.
So as I'm hearing all of that, the number goes 22, 24, 26, 66, 4.
Yeah.
That's what we're left with.
Yep. That's right.
4. Now,
yeah.
if he went over the social line, because we know that there was no legal line crossed, if he went over the socially and ethically drawn line, wherever that is, and who knows where that is, if he went over it, Sue is going to dig into that, and she's going to punish him accordingly.
Right. Yes.
She's going to decide, well, you know what? Moving his penis onto her hand, that to me, that is worth this. So she's going to make that ultimate decision. But this nonsense of 66 and all of that, I think we're down to 4. And when Florio said that in the interview yesterday, I immediately thought to myself, what happened to the other 8 that the NFL found credible enough originally to interview?
Florio also said something it just blew my mind. He said, even Busby admits there was no force or any sort of violence or sexual
coercion, violence
with any of the people. There was 2 credible cases he felt where there was some physical touch where you could say, hey, that was kind of crossed the line. And he said, but those 2 people are part of the 20, and those are already settled. So we're looking at the 4 people.
Although I don't know, do we know that the 4 cases she's looking at are the same 4 that haven't settled?
We don't. But Busby confirmed
the assumption is there has to be an overlap.
You'd think.
I would think the very first woman that appeared in the Real Sports piece.
She hasn't settled.
She has not settled.
Yeah.
I found her to be emotionally disturbed by what happened in that room.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
I found her to be credible.
Yes.
I think the NFL found her to be credible. I would imagine that she is one of the 4 that the NFL is sort of hinging their case on. Guys, all Sue has to do is figure out that there was a line crossed that was unbecoming of the conduct of an NFL player, and there's going to be a suspension.
Right.
And I think that's important to put out there. Like, yeah, you can dismiss. You can get down to 23. And they can say 23 of these are out of the line, out of pocket. There were some more problems with the story. All it takes is the one where she says, but in this one case, I believe what this person says. And the preponderance of evidence is 50-50. It just has to be more likely
that something bad happened than not.
Right. And he caused it. So then she can deliver a punishment and say, we found 23 of these allegations not to cross the line or barrier of punishment. We did, however, judge on the side of the plaintiff in this one case, and this is why he got what he got.
I'm guessing she'll be that specific in her decision.
She should.
I'm not sure she'll use names, but I'm sure she'll allege victim 1.
Yeah.
I found to be credible. The other victims, I had problems with their stories or whatever the case may be. The hope is that she'll be very thorough because, to your point, it does offer some sort of a guideline moving forward. Because we're uncharted territory. I told someone asked me yesterday, when are we going to get a verdict? And I said, it's almost like trying to predict. It is. It's the same thing. How long is a jury going to deliberate? You have no idea.
Right. There's
You
no
have
way
no
to
idea.
guess for sure.
And most prosecutors will tell you that when a decision is reached very quickly, it's usually a favorable verdict for them.
Yeah.
When it's protracted, it can be more troublesome to get the conviction. So I don't know that Sue Robinson is going. We don't even know when she's literally going to start. I would imagine that today, as we're talking, she is in the process of writing her decision.
I read yesterday she gave them one more day to get the briefs in. So yesterday
I did see that too,
was the day. So yes, you'd think just to put a ball on it, because I know we're moving on again. The fact that we've talked about how thorough she's being, the fact that we all, I think, agree that she's going to be so thorough that she's going to break it down case by case.
Yeah.
Tells you once again that it might take even longer than the start of training camp, and that her decision should not be messed with.
So we've ebbed and flowed through this whole thing. Let's put a bow on it this way.
Yeah.
How many games? When do we know? And by the way, this is strictly a guess. Nobody knows.
August 6th, 6 games. I'm finally changing off the 8.
Oh, wow, you're coming down.
August 6th, 6 games.
Tyvis?
Yeah.
Shoot. 4 games.
Ooh.
4 games. I've been saying 4 the whole time. 4 games. July. When do they report?
27th,
I think.
Late July.
The 27th.
27th.
I'm gonna go 24th.
Okay.
I think they get it the 25th of July. I've been 4 to 6. I'm gonna go with something just dumb different. I'm gonna go with 2.
2.
Wow. Okay, I'm going 6th and July 25th.
Wow, so we all think 6
So
or less now.
McNuggets, you can write those down, and that's worth a point in our.
We'll see. Yeah.
By the way, 6
good
even
bet, bad
6
bet.
is a huge win for the Browns.
I would think so.
Yeah,
That's a huge win because then you get them for the Cincinnati and Baltimore games.
And 7 and 8 are. That's why I think 7 and 8 are critical.
Huge games.
And that's why if it's 6, anything less than 6, I think the Browns are doing cartwheels in Berea.
I think from where we were, 8 wouldn't even be bad. Where we were
remember,
2
there
weeks
was talk
ago,
at one point it
indefinite.
could be 2. Remember,
I was about to say, it was
2
2
years.
years.
2 years indefinite. I said, oh goodness.
No, even 8, you're satisfied.
It's crazy that
But 6, you
went-
don't play any playoff teams from last
It
year.
really went from 2 years to 1 year to 12 games.
Well, we think it has.
Well,
we
that's
don't
what-
know.
that's what the public perception
Yeah, right.
has dropped.
All right, very good.